Welcome to this week's live stream. My name is Ryan Pauly, and we're going to have a fun conversation. You know, it probably doesn't take long for you to leave your house, go out to dinner, maybe even in your house, and you are just surrounded by screens, technology, entertainment, and things grabbing for your attention. And so hopefully the conversation today will give you some knowledge on how to think biblically and worldviewly about screens, entertainment, technology, as well as giving you some practical tips and tools on how to navigate in this world of screens that we live in. And so joining me to have this conversation is Brett Kunkle. Brett is my boss, my friend, I don't know, how else should I introduce you, Brett?
Your
mentor,
your leader, your guide.
Awesome. Well, Brett founded Maven. It's a Worldview, really organization focusing on training students. Oh, look at that, matching shirts.
I was going to say, who dresses you, Ryan? You look really good. Oh, that's me.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Well, yeah, so Brett has been working with students now over 20 years. How long has it been?
Actually, it's been like 25, 26 years working with students.
All right. So at first as a youth pastor, then you started working as at Stand to Reason, doing apologetics and the student impact director at Stand to Reason. Now with Maven, and really doing some great work, as we'll discuss here, training students, but also then the people who are working with students is kind of the focus of Maven. And so here talking about screens, technology, how do we navigate this world that we live in? So maybe first, just for those kind of paying attention, maybe those who are just now getting to know you, can you tell us a little bit maybe about the focus of your organization and why you are a person to listen to when it comes to screens and technology and students?
Well, my wife and I are doing. We've got live events that we do, so that's speaking and some conferences. We got the Maven conference that we do here in Southern California. In fact, the theme of that conference in February is technology. How do you help kids navigate a world of screens? And then our immersive experiences, which you are one of our field guides on. And our immersive experiences are just one-of-a-kind, life-changing, almost mission experiences, but worldview mission experiences. So that's what we do at Maven. Yeah, I think the second question was, why am I qualified or something?
Should they even be listening to you right now? But actually, the problem is that, of course, I knew this my first time testing out this video software, and they're saying that your sound is not working.
Oh, you're not hearing any sound?
I don't know if they said no sound still. Oh my goodness.
But you can hear me and I can hear you.
I guess they can hear me. It's broadcasting. There is an error. It's on. Maybe mine is on. and not yours.
My mic's on.
Now you're muted. All right.
So my sound, if you're hearing me, then it's probably an issue with the software, don't you think?
Yeah, and I just changed some settings, and so I thought it should be working here. Oh my goodness, everybody watching, I'm sorry. This is the first time using this new software. Okay, there, I think it says yes now. So I think we're good. So you just need to repeat everything you just said. No, just really quickly, the three kind of things, focuses of Maven.
So the three key things that we do are virtual training, and we're launching like a parent podcast this month that my wife and I are doing, and eventually developing other online resources for people to access. Number two is our live events. We have student events, we have adult events. We do a Maven adult conference, really for anyone who's working with kids 0 to 18 years of age. This conference is designed for them. How do we help come alongside young people, kids, children, students, and best disciple them? And this year's theme is actually on technology and screens. And then we do our immersive experiences, and that's where you're a field guide for our immersive experiences, where we take students on kind of these, the really one-of-a-kind, life-changing worldview mission experiences. Really, I'm not sure there's any place out there where young people can get this kind of training. And so those are the three kind of key strategies that we employ here at Maven to come alongside the local church and the family to help disciple the next generation.
And I mean, I just have to say that those Worldview experiences are just absolutely incredible, and something that you should check out there at maventruth.com. As he mentioned before, maybe it got cut off, but I'm one of the field guides for, and so I'm on staff with Maven, one of the field guides, help lead those trips, going on 3 of them this summer, twice up to Berkeley on the apologetics immersive experience, and then once out to Utah for the Worldview theological immersive experience. So great opportunities that you should be checking out. So as we kind of jump in then, as we talked about, this one is on technology. So now we come back to the second part of the question. Why should they be listening to you, Brett? I mean, I guess you are a mentor, you're a boss. I mean, can I include like a pro surfer on that? I mean, I know you spend a lot of time in the ocean.
Yes, communing with the Lord right there, listening for his voice. Why should you listen to me? It's kind of a funny question to answer, but I would say this. I think I bring to the table a lot of experience. 11 years of experience as a youth pastor, so working with young people in the local church, working with families in the local church. 16 years now of experience in parachurch ministry, working with young people and parents and adults all across the country. And then over 20 years of experience as a parent. I have 5 kids, and that may be my greatest qualification, is I have 5 kids that I've been experimenting on for the last 20-some years. I have a 25-year-old, who's married and out of the house. I have an 18-year-old son. I have a 16-year-old daughter. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I have an 8-year-old son. And so they're kind of my guinea pigs, so to speak. They get to experiencing me trying things out, and of course I'm at home right now, so you'll see the kids popping in to the screen like that. But that's probably my biggest qualification, is a parent who's made a lot of mistakes, who's had some successes as well, who's tried to apply wisdom to parenting, and is walking through all of this stuff right now with you folks out there too. So.
Well, and that was the one thing that I was going to mention. I know it's a weird question to ask, but hey, you can handle weird questions, and that's one reason that you're qualified.
And I expect a lot of weird questions from you, Ryan. So.
Of course, no, but wanting to mention, like you have your 5 kids, and so you've implemented a lot of maybe the practical tools that we are going to be talking about. And I know I've talked to your kids about those tools and their view on kind of how things have been handled. And so that's just one thing is you're not someone that just is coming from this on the outside, like maybe I would be, on how do I handle this with myself and how do I put restrictions on myself. within my marriage, but actually now doing it with students, and not just me telling these students, here's what you should do, but even with your own kids and kind of seeing that result. Because maybe we start with this is one thing that, I know that I have heard, and maybe we'll get to why this is important really quick, because this is on my mind, but even as a teacher, of kids falling asleep in class, and then hearing stories about teachers will talk to parents and say, hey, your student has fallen asleep, and they say they're up till 2 a.m. playing video games. You need this, something has to change. And the parent says, well, if I take them video games away, they'll get mad at me. And so, maybe like this is a question that parents maybe are dealing with, and we see the technology in our culture. But then as a parent, man, if I implement some of these tools that we're going to talk about with my child, with my student, they're probably not going to like it. So maybe from the get-go, how do we even handle this issue of our students, our kids, not wanting maybe these practical steps that you're going to suggest?
Well, I think maybe parents need to step back and think about what the purpose of parenting is. Right? What's the primary purpose? And of course, I think we're specifically talking to Christian parents. As a Christian mom or dad, what is my primary purpose? My primary purpose is to help disciple my kid to follow Jesus and to live for Christ. That trumps everything else. That trumps the kind of grades that they get in school. That trumps how successful they are in their extracurricular activities like sports. It trumps everything. And so it's kind of the idea of you begin with the end in mind. You begin with your end goal, and then that informs what I do and how I do it today. And so guess what? To be a parent means that there are things that I am going to do, probably on somewhat of a regular basis, that my kids aren't necessarily going to like. And I think more and more parents today need to hear this. They need to hear a direct word. You have got to have more courage as a parent, because it's not about whether or not your kid likes you. Obviously, I want my kids to like me. I want them to love me. I want them to love our family and the family culture we've developed. But I'm also primarily interested in their good, their objective good, right? To flourish as a human being and to flourish as a follower of Jesus. And now I know that these kids who come into my house, who we brought into the world, who I love and adore, I know that as soon as I bring them, this little bundle of joy that I bring into the home, they're not just a bundle of joy and a bundle of God's image and made in God's image and have tremendous value and capabilities, but they're also a bundle of depravity, right? They're sinners in their natural fallen state.
I don't hear very many parents talking about their children as bundles of depravity. I think that's a new one for me, but it's true.
But that's the Christian worldview, right? The Christian worldview explains that when I bring that kid home, nobody has to teach that kid how to sin. Nobody has to teach that kid how to be lazy, or how to take the shortcut, or how to kind of pursue pleasure over hard things, right? This is just part of the fallenness of our human nature. And so as a parent, there are going to be lots of things in the world that appeal to their fallen nature that I'm going to have to help them work through. And so I'm going to have to help them do things. This is a primary task of parenting. I'm going to have to help my kid do things that they don't necessarily want to do, but ultimately come to do them, and hopefully down the road even love doing them, because it's what's best for them. It's what's good for them. It's what causes them to flourish and to experience the true happiness and joy and contentment that the Lord offers when we live in obedience to Him and follow Him. So I think that's a really good way to kind of start off this conversation, is because, there might be some things that you and I have to do as a parent that our kids won't be happy with, especially if we haven't developed a culture and we haven't developed habits in our home, we may have to do some resetting. And yeah, there's going to be some initial difficulty. There's going to be some initial complaining and whining and maybe throwing of tantrums and that kind of thing. But ultimately, my long-term goal is that I raise faithful followers of Jesus. And so pain and suffering, whatever that looks like for our young people today, may be part of the task.
Yeah. And I mean, is there a way to, how do you teach, or how do you sit down and have those conversations with your kids when you implement kind of a new strategy, you implement something new, they're upset with it? Is there something that you do on how you sit down with them and talk through them with, this is my end goal, this is what I desire? I know you probably don't recognize it right now, but trying to get them to see kind of the end goal, see the long vision of what you're really trying to accomplish in how you parent.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on what stage of development your kids are at. So this is going to look different if I'm trying to implement this with my 4-year-old or whether I'm going to implement it with my teenager. Because I think it's helpful for parents to understand that there are these different stages of moral development. And so what's required at each of those stages is kind of a different approach that you keep building on. So I think, for instance, in the younger ages, really the toddler age, the elementary school age, the focus for my wife and I has been making it clear what the boundaries are, what the rules are, and then helping our kids learn to submit to that authority and learn to obey the rules. And that's through a combination of incentives and punishments, right? Negative consequences, whatever you want to call it. And I think early on, especially this is going to pay off in the long run. Early on, there's a lot of work that has to be done in terms of just the discipline of our kids early on that you'll build on as they get older. So for my 4-year-old or my 5-year-old or my 8-year-old, really the focus is just on obedience to what mom and dad say. Now, that doesn't mean there's never discussion, but the general emphasis is on obedience to the rules.
Yeah.
Now, as they get older, I'm going to add a second step. I'm going to add the justification. So it's not just here's the rule, obey. Now, let me just say this, and let me go back. What you do when you I guess discipline well, and when you have strong boundaries, and you help your kids to submit to authority, what you help do is you help train the will, and what you help them do is learn self-control. They learn through discipline. Our kids learn how to say no to themselves. They learn how to say no to their sinful desires, their fallen inclinations. And so you're laying that foundation of learning how to say no to yourself, learning how to be content with not getting whatever you want, and then learning how to submit to a higher authority, right? And of course, all of this is going back to God, eventually, who the authority they're ultimately going to have to submit to. Now, in this next stage of moral development, typically when they get into 5th, 6th grade, junior high, middle school, and high school, what we have added to that is the reasons behind the rules. So now, when I'm talking to my 4-year-old and I have a rule and they disobey, there's not a whole lot of explanation that goes on. At that stage, their mind and heart and soul aren't really capable of grasping this, detailed justification and explaining through it. And I see sometimes parents will try to sit down with their kid and try to explain everything, and it's just like going way over their kid's head. They're just not ready for that. But as they get older, though, as their minds develop, as they begin to think more abstractly, now we want to give them the principles and the rules and the kind of the moral reasoning behind this stuff. And so we give reasons for the rules that we have. So now how does this apply to technology? Well, when we have a rule that says you can't take your smartphone into your bed, there's a reason behind that. Number one, we know that when you do that, you lose accountability, right? We also know that from social science that will increase or that will decrease the amount of hours that you sleep because you end up being on your phone. And so things like this, this is kind of the reasoning we go through for this rule. And so what we do is we explain why we're giving this particular boundary or this rule. And then our policy in our house is that if you ever disagree with a rule, absolutely fine, no problem. You can disagree with it, but you can't just say, well, I don't like it. You have to give us the reasons why you think it's not a good rule.
Okay.
And you have to try to convince us that your reasoning is stronger than our reasoning on this. And you need to show that my rule is either unreasonable, I don't have a good reason for it, and then I'll consider that. And if it's the case that my rule is really unreasonable, it's not a good rule, if my kids can show me that, then I am willing to rethink that rule. I'm willing to do away with it. And so we have that just kind of as part of the culture of our house. And what that does is two things. Number one, it allows our kids to feel like they can actually challenge a rule they think is unreasonable, right? And sometimes we as parents have to admit there are rules that are unreasonable. It's maybe something we grew up with, we kind of play the power card and say, well, because I said so, which now there's I don't want to be careful there, because I think early on there's the authority card that we do play, and that's legitimate. But I'm talking about now later stages of development, where I don't want to just simply say, this is the rule because I said so. It's now, here's the rule and here's the reason why we have the rule, and ultimately it's for your flourishing. And I think that models our Heavenly Father as well. I think that models God. I think God gives us rules and guidelines and boundaries, and I think there are reasons why. It's for ultimately our flourishing, because He loves us and He wants what's best for us. So,
yeah.
so all of that to say, that's kind of the foundation that we have to have in place in order for us to, I think, really be able to make some progress with our young people.
Yeah.
So if I'm starting that conversation with a teenager and I'm starting to implement new rules that haven't been in the house yet, I'm going to have to do a lot of work explaining the why. So that means I'm going to have to think through the why. I'm going to have to know why I don't want my kid on their smartphone after, 10 p.m. Or I'm going to need to give a reason why they can't have it in their bedroom. Or I'm going to have to give a reason why they need to have filters or monitoring software or things like that. So, so that's what I would say in general in terms of how you start this.
Oh, that's good. And I mean, knowing your family, I know your son does debate, and I'm just curious, have your kids ever presented reasons and you go, wow, actually that is a bad rule? Have they ever won that argument?
No, of course not. I mean, come on. My logic is impeccable.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you have an MA philosophy. It should be, right?
I mean, that's really the reason I got an MA philosophy, is that so that I could out-debate my kids every single time.
And your wife.
No.
No.
No, let me just give some advice right now. Don't use that one on your wife.
I will.
I just let her win all the time. So
there we go.
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. I mean, I could consult my wife, who's back here, but I'm trying to think of an illustration where they really had to challenge a particular rule we've had. I definitely think it's very rare, and part of that is what it's caused my wife and I to do is to think carefully about what rules we have.
Yeah,
it makes us, it holds us accountable, because I don't want to just say because I said so. I have to think through, and those things that I don't think I have a good reason for, I just kind of have to cast aside. So anyway, I have to think through that. I bet I could ask my kids, though, and they would probably think, oh, yeah, Dad, remember when you said this and then we said this? And
of course, they're going to remember that stuff.
They're going to remember it more quickly than I will.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think this is a great foundation of really kind of addressing the parent and how we kind of go about setting these rules and helping our students, our kids, understand the importance of what our goal is for them. I want to kind of shift over to what we talked about is navigating kind of this culture of screens kind of from a usage maybe kind of standpoint. And I think, it doesn't take long to think of examples. Just the other night, I went out on a date night with my wife, and the table right next to us, in comes a family or 2 or 3 families combined. 4 of the kids, about 8 years old and younger, all 4 come walking in with their own iPad. They sit down and put their iPad on the screen. Dad sits right next to his kid, pulls out his phone. I mean, everyone's just on their phones. And I mean, even if you're in Southern California area, I was at downtown Disney for a birthday party, so right outside of Disney, and tons of entertainment, tons of stuff going on. Parents pushing their kid in a stroller, and the kid's got an iPad in a stroller, watching something on the iPad where even the magicians and all of the attractions of Disneyland is somehow not enough for this kid. And it just blows my mind. And so, this is the culture that we live in. And I think, I don't know, I think about, you talking about these different levels of addressing this with your kids. And obviously, if I think about my students who have been allowed to do something for a long time, then all of a sudden you're like, look, you got to pull the plug. And that's much more difficult where you have these 2 and 3-year-olds that have just been trained where I get my iPad wherever I go. And so it starts something that we just get them used to, what they're going to do. And so I know you have kind of some family rules on when you go on road trips and you spend a lot of time in the car and things like that. So how would you kind of suggest kind of initially of with the really small little kids and growing up into, as they grow up, what are some kind of guidelines to put in place as they learn how to navigate this world of screens when they don't have that awareness to know what they should and shouldn't do?
Yeah, and let me just apologize. I'm here in the my home office, so that was my my phone ringing in the background. If anyone's wondering, look, here with the younger ages, I think what our primary goal there was to keep them off of screens for as much time as possible and for as long as possible. And there's some research on just child development, brain development in young kids who get on screens at early ages. And without going into the details of the research, I think basically what we can conclude is that the healthiest thing to do is to keep your kids off of screens for as long as possible. Now, think about it. Children for the last, 4,000 or 5,000 years of human existence have survived childhood without a screen in front of their face.
I don't know. I think we flourished, not just survived. I think we did well.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think a lot of what goes on is just we are socialized. We are socialized by the culture around us. And so we see our neighbors, our friends, people at Disneyland. The culture all around us is in front of screens. And we just come to absorb this idea and this thought that this is normal. This is normal behavior. And so I think one thing that Christian parents have to do is step back and say, wait a second, this world is not our home. American culture is not our home. My primary citizenship is of a different kingdom, the kingdom of God. And things should look different in my home. In fact, I think that's a mantra that Christian parents ought to repeat to their kids and instill in their kids from the very get-go, is that we are different. And we're different because we're followers of Jesus, because our citizenship belongs primarily in a different kingdom. And so we're going to have to constantly say we're different, and let our kids really let that soak in and get comfortable with that, right? I think, and in fact, that's going to serve them well as a follower of Jesus. In a fallen world, we are going to be different, not just when it comes to technology. But if I've got this kind of culture I'm developing in my home from a very early age that we are different, then that's going to help me as I take this particular area of technology and then help them to live differently than their friends, because I see it all around. It's elementary school now. It used to be junior high where there was pressure to get a cell phone. And now that just keeps getting pushed lower and lower. And so now it's 3rd and 4th graders, 2nd graders, even 1st graders who parents are handing smartphones to.
That's crazy.
right? And so, in fact, I was just speaking at a Christian school in Memphis a couple months ago, and I was speaking about technology to 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, and I asked them, a show of hands, how many of you have a smartphone? And I would say 98% of those kids raised their hand and said they had a smartphone.
Yeah.
It was, and 5th graders, the vast minority of 5th graders didn't have a smartphone. And man, talk about social pressure.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to have to do is, number one, I think hold off our kids for as long as possible from screens in our homes. So one of the things that we have to do as parents is model that. That means I cannot be on my screen all the time. I cannot be on my smartphone all the time. I can't every night check out and just turn on Netflix. I mean, I'm going to have to model, self-control on the screens as well, so that my kids can see that consistency in me, and hold them off as long as possible so that they can develop good habits of self-control. I mean, the earlier they're on, the easier it is for them to get addicted.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of research done on just kind of the brain chemistry with screens and neurons that are firing and dopamine that's rewarding the brain and that gets us addicted to our technologies and our social media platforms. I mean, we can look at all that stuff, but so I think we hold them off as long as possible. And that just means you're going to look very different than other families around. And so that's where I think the church can play a huge role in providing an alternative community. Like our children's ministries and our youth ministries and the families in our churches should be an alternative community, so that our kids, when they go to school Monday through Friday, if they're at a public school or a private Christian school or whatever, where they're getting all this social pressure to be on screens and to own screens all the time, and so much life now is centered around a screen, that they have an alternative community that's living differently than that.
Yeah.
Flourishing. And so that's where I think gathering together with other families who hold similar values, having a youth ministry that has, strict rules on, the use of screens at youth group or on trips or that kind of thing, all that will help us as well.
Well, I think that's one thing that's been so impactful for me is to see and be around youth groups and places and parents that have done this well, and seeing what it does to the students. So for example, I remember one of the Maven immersive experiences, going on a youth group where the youth pastor took away all the phones for the entire week. And these kids could only take it out. I think he gave it to them one time on like a free day for some pictures. But other than that, even like walking through San Francisco, going on to Berkeley campus, use your phone, use your watch to know the time, or ask someone. You don't need your phone. And it was incredible to see how these students were able to ride in the car for a long distance and not just isolate themselves, but actually talk and learn and grow and be in that relationship and that community, friendship with people, as well as, just the engagement that they had in the world around them as we spent that week up in Berkeley without their phones.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah, and I think what students tell us after this kind of thing, so like on our immersive experiences, we have some boundaries in terms of technology, but my home youth ministry that my kids are involved in, I love that our youth pastors there on trips, they tell kids you can't even bring them.
Yeah.
And it's actually the kids who are the biggest problems and who complain the most. It's often the parents.
Absolutely.
Which is crazy. But the kids, after 5, 6, 7 day trip where they haven't had their phones, it's universal. They all say, I'm so glad I didn't have my phone.
Yep.
They actually want us to guide them and lead them in that. Even though they may throw a fit at first, they understand. Many of them already realize that they're somewhat addicted or fully addicted to their technology.
Yeah.
In fact, I talk to students, high school students, who say, when I'm doing my homework, I have to hand my phone over to my parents, and I have to tell them not to give it to me, because I can't control myself, and I'll check social media every 15 minutes, and I can't get my homework done. And so they want our help. They want our guidance and our wisdom, even if they push back from it at first. They need to experience the flourishing on a trip like this, what it's like not to have that thing, not to be attached to it, not to be addicted to it. And then they come back and they go, man, that was so great. I didn't have my cell phone.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, in my work, with high school students in the classroom, and they tell me, oh man, that homework took me 3 hours to complete. And I go, how much time would you actually say you're working on the homework? Because versus checking your phone, versus you probably had something else on your computer. You probably had a movie or something going on the TV, and it's like, well, yeah, I had all those things going. It's like, how much time did you actually put into that homework? And then they realize it's not actually that much time. Most of their time was distracted, checking every single time a text message came through, their notifications went off. And I mean, when you are connected to all these social media apps, notifications are constantly going off. And so what should have taken them about 20 minutes took them 3 hours. And then they're not getting sleep. And it's just creating that problem. Now they're sleeping in the classroom. And so I know that's another kind of practical tip that you give, and I have done, and probably, or I followed your wise counsel. And
I'm glad to hear that, Ryan.
Probably, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, when I first heard you say this, and I did it then, and I tell you what, it's been incredible for me, is not having notifications turned on my phone, except maybe for text messages that, from family or something, and then maybe like work emails. Everything else, all social media, everything else, no notifications. Can you kind of explain maybe your reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so the idea is I don't want this thing controlling me, I want to control it. And so when it is constantly calling out to me through notifications, it's really difficult to resist that. A notification that says, oh, this person commented on your Facebook post or your Twitter post or your Instagram post. Those kind of notifications, or game notifications or whatever. I mean, it's really hard, especially for a young person who hasn't developed strong habits and real strong self-control. They can't resist that thing calling out to them. And so the way we framed it for our kids is that, hey, the rule is all notifications off. The only notifications that we can have on are phone and text for the kids, right? We want them to hear those notifications. And for me, I just add one more, it's email. And so I actually live by this rule as well, because I don't want that thing constantly calling out to me. I want to control it. I don't want it to control me. And so that's just one of the rules that we have, because I know that if this thing is buzzing every 2 minutes, it's just going to create a distraction that our kids are not, they just don't have the maturity to handle. I mean, a lot of adults don't have the maturity to handle that. And so that's just one of the small rules that we have in place to kind of keep this thing at bay. If I could give another practical thing that we've done that kind of goes along with that as well, but it's the idea of having screen-free times and screen-free locations in your house. And so, again, this thing is, we don't want it to be a 24/7 kind of deal. We actually want there to be certain hours where it's turned off and put away. So every day there's a time where, and we just have it kind of automatically set up, since our older two kids have smartphones. It's automatically set up that the whole phone kind of goes to sleep, except for a couple of things like their phone, the phone app part of it, so they can receive calls. But at a certain time, typically 10 o'clock, everything shuts down. They can't use certain apps, and that kind of thing, because we want there to be time that they're not dependent upon this thing. There are times in the morning, right? We've told our kids, hey, we don't want the smartphone to come on before a certain hour. So you've got these screen-free times. And there are, and sometimes those are not just kind of your daily times, but sometimes those are whole days. So for instance, just in Thanksgiving, we took the family up to a cabin up in the mountains to spend Thanksgiving together. We went up on Tuesday, and when we got up to the cabin, we asked the kids, the two older kids, our teenagers, to take their smartphones and to turn them off for the next 3 days. And they turned them off. So we had 3 days with just screen-free time where they set those things aside so that we could really focus on the time that we had together as a family. And I was surprised. Some people, a friend of mine recently asked me, well, how did that go? Were they bothered by that? And I was expecting a little resistance, but there actually was zero resistance from my kids, because I think we've done a fairly good job of explaining the why, and they've now benefited from taking those breaks. Yeah. And so they were willing to say, okay, yeah, we'll do that, because we know that there is benefit in this. There's flourishing in this rule. And
well, I think, I mean, just from, I mean, the practical, I mean, almost testimonial from your son is, you know, I've talked to him and asked him, you know, how these kind of things have affected him. And he's told me that he sees what phones do to a lot of his friends. And then he sees kind of where he's at having these kind of limitations, and actually that he really appreciated it. And I think he even said that it was, you know, he almost didn't want a smartphone. And it was, no, you're driving now, you need GPS, you actually need to get a smartphone. And so even just growing up in this system had helped him see the benefit. And he had actually seen the benefit of having these limitations, to where when you wanted him to get a smartphone because of him driving, he kind of almost wanted to push back, which is normally the opposite of most kids want it, and it's the parents pushing back.
Yeah, I definitely got to give my son Mike credit for that on that one, because in fact his sister, my daughter, Paige, who is 18 months younger than him, she got a smartphone first. And I remember when she got her smartphone, I was thinking, well, Micah doesn't have a smartphone, so he's older, he's definitely going to want one.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, I said, hey, Micah, are you interested in a smartphone? Do you want a smartphone as well? And at that point, before he was driving, he said, no, I don't think so. I see what those things do, and I know the temptations that come with that. And he's like, why would I want that? And so he had a dumb phone. It just had a little text pad. And and eventually it was at kind of my request that he get one for driving, that he got one. Yeah. And so it's possible to develop, I think, a real healthy attitude in our kids. Look, there's so many families and so many kids who just go along with the culture. Yeah. And everyone sees that. You see that even the families at maybe your church, and you see that and you just think, oh, that's just the norm. Yeah. That's just the norm. And so that's why I kind of offer that out there for parents, not because I'm so great and we've done such a great job, but I want parents to see, hey, there are families out there who are battling kind of this, you know, omnipresent screen. Yeah. And there's some success that can be had if we do it, I think, in the right way with our kids. Absolutely.
And I remember, I mean, when I was in college, and this is, I don't know, my junior, senior year, so we're talking 2009-ish. The iPhone 3 had just come out, I think, in 2008. So this is kind of the new kind of smartphone era. I didn't have one at the time. But I remember one of my professors in one of my kind of practical youth ministry classes asking us, how many hours a day is your phone within 3 feet of your body? And every student in the class went, well, 24 hours. It's my alarm clock. I plug it in next to my bed at night. It wakes me up in the morning. It goes in my pocket. It's always on me. Like, why wouldn't it be? Like, what kind of question is that? And even now, just looking back at that and thinking, wow, how much more, you know, of what you're saying is this need to separate. And so now my phone gets plugged in out in the kitchen. My wife and I, we don't bring the phone into the bedroom. And again, just this need to go out there. I'll check you when I wake up, and to the best of my ability, and I'm not perfect, is we wake up, we have breakfast, hopefully we do some devotions, and not go to the phone first. And that's a lot easier. And I've said this many times, of when your phone is your alarm clock, you wake up and the first thing you do is you see all the notifications on the screen and you go, oh, this is stuff I got to check. Now, if you see it behind me, I have a normal alarm clock right there. And so when the first thing I see when I wake up is not my phone, I don't know what has been, going after me. And sometimes I have that curiosity of, I need to go check it. Let me go see what's on it right now. And other times I'm getting better as my wife and I talk about these things of, okay, no, let's spend time together. Let's have devotions. Let's do what's actually more important. And then we'll find out what's out there on the phone. So just so important to have that time of separation.
Yeah, and that's kind of that second part. Not only do we have screen-free times, but then we need screen-free locations. Yeah. And so one of our rules for the kids is that the bedroom is a screen-free location. And of course, there are exceptions to this at times. But we bought both of our high schoolers alarm clocks so that they don't use their phone as an alarm clock. We bought ourselves alarm clocks as well. And so you've got screen-free locations like the bedroom. The dinner table for us is a screen-free location. So the dinner table at home and the dinner table when we're out is that phones never come out. And in fact, at home, you can't even have your phone in your pocket. Your phones have to be over charging or on the counter or somewhere else, but we don't even have them at the table with us while we're eating. And if we're out to dinner somewhere and I've got my phone in my pocket, that's fine. I just don't take it out when someone calls.
Yeah.
That's a screen-free location.
That's so good. Well, I know we're kind of shooting for about an hour or so. I see about 45 minutes in. And so I want to kind of transition now. I think this has been so good. Hopefully it's helpful to those who are listening. But transition now over to from kind of the practical, how do we handle the screen, to the actual content on the screen. And so I know you've written the book, The Practical Guide to Culture, which here I think I can pull up here, help everybody see. There it is, The Practical Guide to Culture. The new book that is just now about to come out is The Student Guide to Culture.
It's actually officially out.
Oh, it is fully out now.
It's out. You can get it on Amazon.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so there it is, and hopefully helping them, again, as it kind of talks about here in the subtitle, helping the next generation navigate today's world. But one thing you talk about is these cultural lies that our culture wants to teach us and tell us of, and we often hear students say this is, hold on, look, this is just entertainment. It's not affecting me. This doesn't have any influence on me. Relax. It's just a movie. It's just a song. It's just whatever. And so how is it that, how would you maybe respond to these cultural lies of, look, the actual content now on the screen, it doesn't affect me. It's neutral. Yeah. It's just entertainment. Calm down.
Well, what I would do is I would actually kind of break this up into two categories. Is the content itself, right? And the content is always communicating ideas. So every YouTube video, every tweet, every Instagram post is communicating ideas. Ideas about life, about what the good life is, about what's pleasurable, about what's moral, or all of those things. So there's the content side of things, but then the other aspect I think we need to help our kids think through, and we need to think through, is the use of the technology itself. So, for instance, the smartphone and technology in general, the screen, whatever it is, these things aren't just neutral. It doesn't mean they're immoral. So let's just take the smartphone for instance. I wouldn't say it's immoral. Just in virtue of owning a smartphone, I've done some immoral deed. No, that we'd say it's amoral, right? It's neither immoral or moral. But even though we would categorize it that way, we also don't want to say, well, therefore it's also neutral, meaning it doesn't have any impact on me. No, I would say that the very use of this thing can have an impact on us. Technology is not neutral in the way it can shape us and push us. I think the way to think about it is that technology is constantly moving in a direction. It's moving us in different directions, and we have got to become aware of those directions. So, for instance, I mean, here's a way to illustrate this. Take movie watching, okay? So, take movie watching on a device like this, like the smartphone, or an iPad, or a computer screen, versus the traditional ways of watching a movie, which was, let's say, going to a movie theater, right? Now, you might be watching the very same movie, but the user experience is very different in both of those scenarios. One where you go to a movie theater and one where you watch it on a device, right? Here are a couple of basic observations. Number one, when I go to a movie theater, I'm going to a public place, and the movie is going to be put up on a screen, and there's going to be multiple viewers at the same time watching this thing. So it's a shared experience. It's done in public. And just think about the accountability that's built into that, right? Afterwards, I can then, I typically go to a movie with other people, my family or friends or whoever, so I've had the shared experience, and then afterwards, we might go to dinner or coffee or whatever, and then there might be conversation about the movie and that kind of thing. So you go from this kind of public shared experience now to watching it on a device with headphones in, all by yourself. And now you're isolated watching this. So there's no shared experience with anyone else at those moments. It's not public, it's private. So now there's a huge loss of kind of accountability, right? And now you're also isolated. Now again, those things in and of themselves aren't wrong, but what I want to say is that's not neutral. A person who is constantly doing that, that's pushing them in a direction. And technology has a huge potential to isolate us from other people in lots of different ways. And no wonder so many of our young people are struggling with rates of anxiety and depression and suicidal thoughts like no other generation. And so I think those are the two things I'd want to say is that there's the technology itself and what it can do and how it can shape us, that it's not neutral, and the content then that's also being communicated through this. So there's kind of two things that we really have to look out for as parents and adults who are trying to help kids navigate this. Then there's the content aspect of things. And when it comes to the content, I've kind of taken three categories, kind of the three transcendentals of truth, goodness, and beauty to really help be measurements for my kids, right? Does this communicate truth? Are the messages that are coming through this truthful? So the first thing you got to do is discern what is the message. And so we have to help navigate that with our kids. And is not only is it true, but is it good? Is it in terms of what it promotes? Is it promoting a true picture of the good life? Is it promoting moral goodness? These kinds of things. And then also, is it beautiful? Is it well done? Like, we don't have to simply be satisfied with, cheesy Christian art or movies because it's got a good message.
Yeah.
No, we could have a higher standard. The stuff that we should create should be the most beautiful stuff, as well as promoting the true and the good.
Yeah.
And so, just very practically, how we walk through this with our kids is that we have to analyze the content with them all the time. And so for instance, when it comes to music, the way we've done this is, our kids come home, they've heard a friend loves a certain song, they want to get it, they want to download it, they want to, get it through Apple Music or whatever. Well, okay, print out the lyrics. Let's print out the lyrics. Let's read through the lyrics. We don't do this with every single song, but we're trying to help them develop discernment for themselves. So, especially early on, let's read through the lyrics together. Let's analyze the message. Let's think through this. Or we take a movie at home and we'll watch a movie together. And there have been times when we pause it throughout the movie, asking kind of worldview questions, asking them to analyze it, asking them, who's the hero, who's the villain, how is this person characterized, all of those kinds of things. And then as as they get older, we're able to just kind of do that afterwards, sit down and discuss a movie afterwards. Well, we're just always trying to help them analyze the content.
Yeah, and this is something that I tried to do in my last live stream here on YouTube, just on, I'm already forgetting, I think it was on Friday, and tried to kind of model is that I watched the new series on YouTube, one of the YouTube originals, The Age of AI, where it talks about artificial intelligence, how far is too far, and I watched it and immediately began to see, my goodness, there's so many ideas being presented that you are your data, not you are an image bearer of God. And what would be the implications if we could clone a digital, have a digital version of ourselves, and what this would mean for us, as well as then getting into kind of the medical aspect of prosthetic limbs. And so I tried to kind of model what you're saying here, and I took about 30 minutes or so, and I worked through the first episode of The Age of AI and tried to show, here's some questions to think about. Here's the worldviews that are being presented. Here's why what they're saying makes sense from a secular worldview. And so that would be something definitely to think about, or to check out, is that last live stream, kind of the model on how to do that. And again, as Brett's talking here, of doing that with your students. Now, I'm thinking also just of, as you're kind of talking about that content, and I think it's so good to ask those questions, because how many times, do students actually sit down and have those thoughts of who's the good guy, who's the bad guy? How have I been influenced by this? How have screens changed my friends? How does it change our interaction that we have at lunch when we're at school? I know at my school, and I mentioned this earlier, but just when talking about screen-free zones, we can't just say put your phone in your backpack or keep your phone in your pocket. They don't have sometimes that control to keep it there. And so in most of the classrooms at my school, we literally take the phone away from them. They have to turn it in. I have a holder at the front of my classroom. They have to turn their phone in at the beginning of the class and pick it up at the end of the class because sometimes we don't have that control. And even myself, I will take it out of my pocket and put it in my desk when I teach, because even if it's on vibrate, it vibrates in my pocket in the middle of teaching. I go, what was that? Who's texting me? What's going on? And I am immediately distracted.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, a question just came in on the live broadcast here from Faith from Fact Channel. Let's see if I can throw it up. Oh, that's pretty small. Let's drag it over here, make it a little bit bigger. Can we use technology and social media? How can it best be utilized for the advancement of the kingdom? And how can youth be encouraged to use it for God?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think that's the flip side of this. Now, I think when we're talking about kids, it seems to me that the first step is protection. And so that's what we've talked a lot about here, I think, in this the video, is protection, because I'm trying to offer my kids protection so that within that protection, they can develop habits, good habits, strength of character, because ultimately at the end of the day, there's no amount of rules that are going to cover everything. You just can't, with all the changing technology, with all the different platforms, there's just no amount of rules that will keep your kid entirely safe. And so what we also have to focus on is their virtue and their character, their inner person, and develop that. Once we've done that protection, once we've given them that protection, then I think we start talking also about, okay, how do I use this now to advance the kingdom of God, to do good things? So for instance, here would just be a real practical way, is just taking those three categories of truth, goodness, and beauty, and then applying it to something like social media. Okay, every time you post something, I want you to think about why you're posting that particular thing. Is it simply for the purposes of self-display, right? And so it might lean towards kind of the vice of vainglory that we see in the scriptures. Are you posting it to encourage others? Are you posting it as just an update about life? And there's some value in that in terms of just friendships and being personable and people being invested in each other's lives. I think those are good things. But so I think one thing that we can do is just help them to think through, help our kids to think through why they post what they post, and to think about that question before they actually post. And to also say, hey, maybe before you post, check in with me and say, hey, Mom, Dad, what do you think about this post? And get some other eyes on it. Or if you've got a good friend or a youth pastor or a youth leader or whatever, have some accountability with them. Hey, what do you think about this post? And think about, how can I communicate or promote the true and the good and the beautiful through my Instagram feed or through whatever social media platforms I'm using? And how do I publicly identify myself as a follower of Jesus through this, without doing it in a way that maybe turns people off? Of course, I realize that you're not always going to be able to control that, but you know what I mean. Where you're not, it's not. It's just done in a winsome way, or it's done with intelligence. And just helping our young people to think through that. Like, a great question to ask our young people is and a great exercise is to say, hey, every 6 months or every year, let's just go through a year's worth of social media posts on a particular platform, and let's go through it together, and let's see, what does it communicate? Like, if I just look through your social media feed, what would this tell me about you, your values, your life, what's important, all of that good stuff? And so if everything you're posting is a kind of a selfie about you, and it seems to communicate some self-centeredness or selfishness, well then, all right, let's reset. How do we then figure out how we communicate the true, the good, and the beautiful through this?
Yeah.
And so I think there probably has to be some evaluation and then some coaching and mentoring on how to use this for good.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think there's all kinds of ideas, and I
Absolutely.
would love to see us also talk about with our kids those kind of ideas where we're advancing goodness as well. But there has to be some self-control that's at play, I think, as a foundation for that.
Yeah. And I think that's important to kind of point out, and I wanted to bring it up sooner, and I talk about it in my talk when it comes to entertainment, is that even from the parent perspective shifting, is you talk a lot about the true, the good, and the beautiful, and that's one thing that Maven is founded on, is knowing truth, pursuing goodness, and creating beauty. But we often, when it comes to entertainment, movies, music, we kind of have this line approach where you have the secular and the Christian, you have, cursing and not cursing, and you have these ideas of what you've kind of considered bad, and as long as it has one of these things, it's considered bad. And as long as it doesn't have these things, it's considered good. And we kind of draw that line versus what it sounds like you're saying is a little bit different rather than the line approach, the secular, the Christian, the good, the bad. Maybe those things aren't necessarily off limits just because it contains something, but maybe we're pursuing it from reflecting, having those questions, and helping students think more critically about what is true, good, and beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes there are clear lines, but we're not just about line keeping.
Yeah.
Right? We're not just about rule following. We're actually about a direction. I want my young person's life to go in a certain direction where they're not just asking the question, okay, what's the line that I can get up to? I want to get up to that line.
That's the question I always ask. How close can I get?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the wrong thinking about these things. I want to become a particular kind of person. I want my kids to become particular kind of men and women of goodness and virtue and character and all of those things. And so the line question is the wrong question to start with. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't clear lines, but we want to go deeper than that.
Yeah.
And so that, and then out of that, and this is why, again, there's no amount of rules that you can lay down that are going to be necessary and sufficient. You've got to focus on who they're becoming, and then from that, hopefully, will flow out of that the desire to do good through even something like social media. Yeah. To consider putting out the truth on social media platforms and using those things for goodness.
Absolutely. So I know we're getting pretty much out of time, so let's address this last question that came in, and it really is here. How do you suggest churches address this issue in our youth, or do you believe this is solely a parental issue?
Yeah, great question. I think it's primarily a parental issue. I think that's the first place that responsibility lies with, is the parents. And I think that's just how God has designed. He's designed the home to be, and parents to be the primary caregivers and guides and mentors to our kids.
Yeah.
But I think also the church can be a very powerful ally and should be a powerful ally in that. And there's a partnership there. And you sometimes have these extremes where you've got parents who view the church, like especially when they get into the teen years, they view like the church is the one that should be discipling my kid. And so if I drop them off at youth group, you youth pastors, you youth leaders should, kind of really disciple them, and it's up to you. And that's, I think, the wrong approach. But then there's also those families who I think who are so withdrawn from the church, or are involved in the life of the body, and maybe don't make youth, the youth ministry a priority. And I think that's also an unhelpful approach. What I want to see is that parents step it up and churches step it up, so that we can be a kind of powerful allies. And so I think a real helpful thing is that when parents and churches come together and we're on the same page, and we're creating kind of the same culture, and we're re-emphasizing and communicating the same messages, so that a teenager isn't just hearing it from mom and dad, but they're hearing it from their youth leaders and their youth pastor. That can then create a really healthy culture, an alternative culture for our kids. So I think churches and parents ought to be very strong allies in this. And so I don't think it's an either or, but a both and, with the primary responsibility in the home.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap up, I know that, I wanted to discuss this topic with you, not only because is this just a massively, I think, pressing issue in our culture, and how we have to talk with students and talk with our kids, as everywhere they go, there are screens and they're just consumed and surrounded by this, but also to think biblically, think worldviewly about the issues of the social media, the entertainment that we soak in. And I know that this is going to be the topic of the next Maven Parent Conference. You can find out more on mavenconferences.com. Can you tell us a little bit about this upcoming conference here as in February, right?
Yeah, it's in February. And let me say this, it's not actually a Maven Parent Conference, because we don't want to limit it to just parents.
Got it.
It's our Maven Adult Conference. And the idea is that if you are working with kids anywhere from the ages of 0 to 18, then this conference is for you. So that includes parents. That includes grandparents. That includes Christian educators like you, Ryan. That includes youth pastors and volunteer youth workers. It includes children's ministry workers. It includes homeschoolers. Anyone who's working with kids 0 to 18, this is a conference to help equip you to help disciple kids better in whatever role you have in their lives. And so if you go to mavenconferences.com, you'll find all the information there. Our focus this year is helping our kids navigate a world of screens. Yeah. And the conference is the last Friday at night and Saturday. It's here in Southern California at Calvary Church of Santa Ana. And it's, like I said, February 28th, 29th. It's right now, early registration is $49. We've got a great lineup of speakers. John Stonestreet, who's the president of the Colson Center, will be doing a main session. Kathy Cook, who has written an amazing book on this topic called Screens and Teens, she'll be talking. Jonathan Morrow from Impact 360 will be doing a main session. Natasha Crane, who's written some great books for parents, will be there. My wife, Erin, will be doing some great talks, some others as well. And it really, the focus will be on how do we help our kids navigate a world of screens and technology and social media in ways that protect them and in ways that they can honor Christ with. And so go to mavenconferences.com. You can find all the information there. And let me just say this. As I've been thinking through this, I actually think technology is probably a greater threat to the faith of our kids than atheism right now. Of course, our kids need to be able to answer atheism. They need good apologetics. But man, technology is omnipresent. I'm seeing kids walking around with their heads down all the time. It's causing them not to even think or care to think about life's biggest issues. It's creating this kind of whateverism in their hearts and souls. And so you ask them about worldview issues, you ask them about apologetic questions. So many kids have been so just desensitized by technology. They've been so lulled to sleep. They've been taught how not to think. They become so distracted that they're just like, whatever, I want to go back to my social media platform.
Yeah, throw my AirPods back in. I mean, that's become my pet peeve. Just it's hard to see people that aren't walking around just constantly having something in their ears.
Yeah, and so technology may be a big, maybe one of the biggest challenges to the faith of our young people, and we need to address it. And those of us who think about worldview need to help equip the church with a worldview approach that is also very practical and helpful to navigate these kind of issues.
Yeah. Awesome, Brett. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate having this conversation. It's great to spend this time with you, and I know I'll be seeing you around more, but hopefully this is also an encouragement to those who are listening and watching.
Thanks for you're doing, man. We need more of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those watching, here you go. Here's some awesome resources. The Practical Guide to Culture on this side. You got the Student's Guide that just came out this January. Maventruth.com, great resource for youth ministries, as well as the adult conference coming up at mavenconferences.com as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, hopefully you got past the issue at the beginning with sound, but thank you all so much. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. See you guys later on the next weekly live stream.